I'm the best job of the world because I get to do innovation and strategy, and it combines healthcare and technology, and that's like where my heart's at. So I practiced for about 12 years as a neuroradiologist, so my specialty was putting angiogram, putting it, like the cardiologists go to the heart, I used to go up to the brain. Cardiology, radiology, the intensivist, it's a team sport. You have a single individual lying on the table, and it's a team effort, everyone doing their best part.
So we try to kind of all these tests.
I retired, but thankfully.
All right, we are back. It's Tell Me Why. We're at Arab Health, and with me is Shez Partovi, who is the Chief Innovation and Strategy Officer of Philips. Shez, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's lovely because we just had like a really casual chat before we started rolling, and there's so much that I'd like to know about you. And, you know, I mentioned your title at the beginning of the show, but that's not even the half of it, because when I was looking through your profile, I was like, wow, you've accomplished and you've been through so much that we want to know more about you. We want to know about your previous experience and how you ended up in Philips.
I've been at Philips for 4 years, and I'll start by saying I'm the best job of the world because I get to do innovation and strategy, and it combines healthcare and technology, and that's like where my heart's at. So obviously, but I started as a physician. I practiced for about 12 years as a neuroradiologist, so my specialty was putting angiogram, putting it, like the cardiologists go to the heart, I used to go up to the brain or go to the spine.
Okay.
But because of my background in computer science, I was in this mode where I was always pulled back to the technology side. So even while I was clinically practicing, I was always trying to figure out how I could scale the things I do. Because when you do angiography, you do like 5 patients a day, because they are long procedures.
Right.
But this desire to do something at scale just kept taking me back to tech. And so I did startups. One was a spectacular failure. It was brutal, completely brutal. And the other ones, some got acquired, some are out there. But so that I was really letting my energy for technology out through startups. Okay. And eventually really went full-time transition from clinical practice to doing more technology-oriented work. I was chief digital officer for a very large health system in the US. I went to Amazon Web Services, where I was global head of healthcare life sciences and genomics for AWS globally during COVID. That was an experience. Yeah. Helped start a biomedical informatics department at Arizona State University, always in this junction of healthcare and technology. And then when I got a call inviting me to come to Philips as the head of innovation and strategy, where really those two words are the nexus of bringing technology and healthcare together at scale globally. Could not pass it up.
Of course.
And so that was the journey here.
Okay, and what does your role entail in Philips?
The role I started as I said, innovation and strategy. So my role is horizontally across the company. I work with all our different business leaders to really look at strategically, where is it that Philips can bring the greatest impact to help deliver better care for more people, which is really, I'm always a physician at heart. And so this aligns with my passion for delivering better care for people, but also the scale that Philips can bring multinationally. So that strategy and innovation of working with every single business from MR, CT, ultrasound, angiography, our monitoring business. So that's how I started. And then 2 years ago, when new CEO Roy Jacobs took over, he, given my experience and my passion for computing, brought all the software businesses together and said, I'd like you to actually run one of the software verticals. So I'm also the chief business leader for enterprise informatics, which is basically healthcare informatics. So all the software in healthcare, what the radiologists use, what the pathologists use, all the technology, what the cardiologists use to read the images. So there's the procedures you do with equipment, and then there's the software to interpret and diagnose. Yeah. And so I run that software business globally as well. So both innovation and strategy horizontally, and running a P&L software vertically globally is, so it's, like I said, I love my job.
Okay, wow. Okay, so you talk about it casually, but it's not casual. Like, it's not as simple as you put it. You know, you put it so simply, and like you talk about it like it's, you know, day-to-day stuff. But
it's just the great teams. I mean, you know, it's a team sport. Business is a team sport. I've said it all the time. The hashtag team sport is my team list, if they're watching, they know that's the hashtag team sport is the most common reply I give to everything, because you really cannot deliver what you want to do if you're thinking that you're a single individual. So building great teams is and by the way, that's also from medicine. At the end of the day, at the bedside, cardiology, radiology, the intensivist. It's a team sport. You have a single individual lying on the table, and it's the team effort, everyone doing their best part to actually care for that human. That is exactly how, in my humble opinion, business should be run and is run. It's a team sport. You all bring different capabilities.
Right.
And then, in this case, the business and the customer, at the end of the day, the health system that you're working with, and ultimately the patient behind that. Yeah. Again, back to where my heart is. So that is the model I use. Building teams is the most common way that I think of how to be successful, whether I was in practice or whether in business. So it is actually, to me, the same DNA.
Right.
So I'm just doing the same thing, just in a different context.
Amazing. I mean, and if you think about it in like the greater picture, I mean, the human body is teamwork. I mean, it's all the organs working together. And as a person with a background in medicine, you know that one organ can really disrupt the whole system. So it comes full circle. For
sure, it does. It does. Whether it's atomically at a human level, or organizationally, globally. It gets a bit more complicated organization globally, but bringing cultures together, bringing teams together, different time zones, different languages, different ways of thinking is another level of challenge.
Yes,
not that it's not in medicine, by the way.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's challenges in everything. Okay, so you spoke about delivering better care. I mean, on all levels, and we do know that there's a lot of competition out there, and it's a race against time. So can you tell us a bit more on why you think, time could be one of the greatest barriers in such an industry?
We are living in a really amazing time when you look at the challenges and opportunities. So time, the reason it's such a critical barrier is because you are living this world where, as the patient population is aging and the number of chronic diseases increases, the burden on health systems across the world, doesn't matter what country, is increasing, and particularly in some countries where there's endemic situations like more diabetes or more. So that population aging needs more healthcare. By the way, behind it, the millennials are starting to have babies. Let's not underestimate also the burden on the organization on health systems for the younger generation that's getting to. I mean, it's a bit more joyous, but it's still use of health system. So both generations that are large parts of the population pyramid are increasing their requirements in healthcare. And then on the other hand, you have physicians and nurses in short supply globally, and so you have this incredible imbalance between the demand on care and the supply. And what that translates to is time, because the supply is not like you can just snap a finger and produce more nurses or more physicians. The amount of time that they have available to focus on patients becomes critical, as opposed to doing administrative tasks. And so if you have a nurse that's looking at an IV pole and looking at the fluid rate and typing it in, well, he or she should be spending time with the patient, not transcribing. I mean, that's not the kind of work that a nurse should be doing. And so time in a fixed supply space becomes critical. And when we think of time at Philips, we want to give time back to the clinicians so that instead of doing administrative menial tasks, they are spending more high-quality time caring for people. And that translates to, of course, at the end of the day, reducing backlog. And it means less cognitive burden and distraction for perhaps higher level of care. And so this is, and the reason I say it's an interesting time is because we have this imbalance, and then now you bring into it this moment in time where the explosion of artificial intelligence offers an interesting hope.
Right.
So that's why it's a really interesting time to live in.
AI, such a buzzword. We're going to get to that.
Yeah, but we are.
But theoretically, I mean, what you're saying makes sense, but how do you overcome the barrier of time? I mean, you've spoken about why you're doing it and why you think time is crucial when it comes to delivering better care. But then how are you going to overcome it?
So when you look at it, there are a couple of different ways, and I'll give you specific examples. So one way is, for example, if you think of throughput for scanning patients, like you have a certain number of MR scans and CT scans, and you have a backlog of patients, and you, as an organization, speaking like as a health system, I want to see more patients with the same equipment I have. So I may not necessarily have funds. The cost pressures on health systems are immense. So you could say, well, just go buy more MR scanners. Well, that's not feasible. And so if you look through the lens of a health system, they say, I have an MR scanner. I just want to see more patients per day. How can you help me, Philips? And so in that regard, for example, what we've done is we built artificial intelligence algorithms that are embedded in the scanner. We add it after the fact to the same scanner they have.
Okay.
And it does image scanning 3 times faster. So now here you are, your health system, you have, let's say, 2 MRI scans, and you're seeing a certain number of patients a day. And you add the software, you're not changing the scanner, you're not bringing a new scanner in and taking it out. Right. You just upload a USB stick, upload a software, and that's got AI embedded in it. And now you can scan 3 times faster or scan with 65% more resolution, depending on sort of which setting you put it on. So that's an example of actually the how of not saying you need to do a forklift change of an MR scan. You've built suddenly more capacity in the system by simply adding artificial intelligence into an already deployed piece of equipment that can now see more patients per day. So that's one way in which you reduce the wait times, if you will. And then if you look at it another way, there are tasks that physicians and nurses do today that take time. I'll give you, again, a specific example. When you have a cardiac ultrasound done of your heart, it's a movie. If ultrasound, if you've seen it, it's a movie. And so the heart is also beating. And you have a movie with the motion of a beating heart. And the sonographer, the person that's doing the ultrasound, in order to, for example, measure certain things in the heart, he or she has to manually click on the wall of the heart and outline it. Imagine if I gave you 300 pictures and said, okay, here's a mouse. Now go ahead and, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Click the outline, and you have 20 minutes. You spend 20 minutes, click. You just do that for 20 minutes, and then you go, okay, now please do the calculations on this volume, for example. That's a perfect job for an AI algorithm. And so we have that, for example, in our ultrasound piece in the equipment that we have. One button. Finds the best images in the movie, automatically outlines the motion, gives the number. One button. From 20 minutes of a sonographer's time, he or she can see one more patient, perhaps.
Wow.
And so that is an example of applying AI, which is a buzzword, but there is real life uses today of improving care delivery by getting more time to clinicians so they can deliver better care for more people. It's actually here. It's on the show floor downstairs. Go see it.
And it's very cost effective for both ends. I mean, it's a software update.
In these cases, yes.
Rather than buying, new machinery and paying tons of money. I mean, it's like a software update on a phone.
And the idea of, as we're really moving towards a model where at Philips, it's software-defined hardware.
Okay.
What you really are doing is saying, okay, and particularly because your install base wants to continue to get further benefit. And as you said, it's not like replacing an MR scanner. These scanners will last 5-10 years, 10 years. They'll last a long time. And so for sure, we want their lifetime value for the health system to be immense.
Right.
And so this focus on software-defined systems, software-defined hardware, is one way in which we can bring AI to bear to improve throughput, to improve resolution, and then it gives more value to the health system, and is specific how, as you asked, of how, because it's important, because it is not, we don't want it to be a buzzword.
Right.
We want to have evidence behind the how, the claims, if you will, so that you can really deliver better care for more people.
Of course. And to be honest, I say it's a buzzword, but the benefits of AI, it is, but the benefits of AI are undeniable, and we know it, and we see it today. But I have to say, some people are still skeptical. A lot of people, when it comes to healthcare especially, they feel like they still need the human element. So what do you say to that?
Yeah, no, I think if you look at artificial intelligence, I would invite your viewers to look at it in 2 lenses. There's automation and augmentation.
Okay.
So automation is where the AI is literally doing everything completely. And so when you think of, there are administrative tasks that we believe AI should completely automate so that it's not in front of the nurse or the physician. And so that is an example where that it actually gives full time back, but it's in a fully automated way. Now, when you look at augmentation, that's where the AI is a tool to the physician or the nurse to deliver higher quality better care. So let me give you an example of that. Radiologists every single day are looking at the CT scans on their radiology workstation, looking, let's say, for a lung nodule, a lung tumor. And in that case, we have a solution, advanced visualization workstation. And what that does is that as the radiologist is looking through the images, the AI algorithm is actually also co-looking.
Okay.
And it will actually highlight possible tumors and say, do you agree? And what happens in that case, and we've done studies where the radiologist can find the tumors, the lung nodules, 26% faster, but even more critically, perhaps find 29% of lesions that weren't previously seen. So now you have a situation where you're augmenting. Now, in every case, the radiologist can right-click and say on that finding and say, I don't agree, and reject it. Or sort of right-click on it and say, I accept it, and it puts it automatically in the report. And by the way, if it rejects it, the algorithm gets fine-tuned. Why did the algorithm make that error? That the humans said no. So this idea of human in the loop, augmenting the ability of physicians and nurses to deliver higher quality and better care, is the way in which today Philips focuses on deploying technology, where you're augmenting the ability of physicians and nurses to deliver better care for more people. That's an area of focus for us. And in fact, we'd even take it a step further. Philips is one of the few organizations that has like 500 designers. And I don't mean like product designers. So we design AI so that it's visible face up, that this is an AI suggestion. In other words, we don't want AI decisions to be buried so that the physician doesn't know that this is an AI recommendation. So we even are designing our screens, designing our monitor, everything is designed so that the designers, we have a dedicated AI design team that is intently focused. How do I make this so that it's cognitively simple, but very obvious that this is an AI recommendation? So that it's not under the radar. It's what we call face up. That this is an AI recommendation. You can agree to it, you can disagree to it, because we're still in a world where human supervision is critical. So that's the way in which we look at augmenting the ability of clinicians at this point.
Okay, so I just want to add a follow-up question to that on the aspect of augmenting. Again, because it's enhancing, diagnostic tools and, maybe just doctors' diagnoses in general, and whether or not they spot, an anomaly or something wrong with a scan. Do you think that this will help reduce human error?
Well, there are studies published back and forth on the reduction of errors, the detection of, in the example I gave where there was detection of lung lesions that were not identified initially. I think this idea of co-traveling with a clinician to be the additional co-pilot, if you will, that helps. And in fact, that's a skill that we need to learn in medicine, right? I mean, we're going to have cobots that work with us to deliver. I still with physicians
at heart.
Work with physicians who are practicing to deliver better care. So I do think that will help reduce errors. And by the way, a real practical example which we're actually deploying, when I used to dictate all the time. And look, sometimes you say there is a right-sided disc herniation in the body of the report, and then as you come to the impression, you say left-sided disc herniation. And so you have this inadvertent error that occurs in a report while you're dictating, because you're dictating a long procedure or something. You start and you say it's a right-sided thing, and you go down, and then the final impression is you just brain flips and you say left. And sometimes the referring physician only reads the impression, which would be a medical error. We have algorithms we're putting in our radiology station that it actually will look and say, hey, wait, did you mean that? Because earlier you said right, now you said left.
Wow.
What's going on here? And so this real-time quality assurance is an example of the power of generative AI as a augmenting. It didn't make the report, but it's sort of looking over your shoulder saying, just checking.
Like a proofreader.
Yeah, exactly. But in real time, as opposed to, and I will tell you, it's happened where a doctor would call me back and said, hey, did you know that your left, right, and I'd correct the report addendum, impression that said right, I meant left.
Yeah.
So, but that's an example of AI improving, as you put it, the accuracy, the quality. That is actually, again, here today.
Okay. And would you say that people's concern that the healthcare system might be using, AI or new age technology or software in a wrong way? Like, would you agree with people that have that concern?
The heart of the question you're asking is trust.
Right.
Trust in AI. And one of the things that, so I'll talk generally and then I'll talk about Philips as well. So generally, this idea of how do you build models that are trustworthy is not after the fact when you've released the model. Building trust in a model starts at the beginning where you're doing data curation. Because at the end of the day, when you build an AI algorithm, you want it to, if you have a particular population in mind, you want it to be trained on that population so that when it's in the field, it actually is giving accurate, authentic, and sort of appropriate for that population. So one of the key things about trust in the algorithm is to really work upstream in the actual process of data curation, which is why when we do algorithms, we work with clinical partners. So it's, first of all, Philips, it's not like we own data. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the health system's data or the organization's data. We partner with them, it's their data. Together we'll build a model, we'll build an algorithm with the intent of what population is it intended to be put in place. And by the way, co-creating with clinical partners is also a way of building trust, not only in the organization, but in the industry, because you've co-created with, let's say, a good example is the Saudi Data and AI Authority. We co-built an algorithm for cancer, breast cancer detection and lung cancer detection. So you can imagine that it's a different context of trust when you're partnering with, in this case, a Saudi Data and AI Authority to build an algorithm used for breast cancer. It's not like I just woke up one day and said, hey, I got something and use it, but it's really co-created for that population with organizations partnering. This is how Philips does its innovation. We partner, we co-create, particularly in the case of where data is to be used, because it's not our data, it's either a customer or the clinical partner, their data. So that's a key part of how we work to help improve the trust in what we're building and for the organizations to both locally as well as broadly in the region. So that's how we come at, and internally we have an office of responsible AI. We have internal governance of what's this for, what's it being used for. We've had our sort of code of ethics for AI for a long time. It's been on our site around transparency, improving human condition, being fair, being unbiased. So it is not by random, it is by intention. Governance is important, oversight is important, but also partnering and making sure that you build trust through partnerships adds credibility when you release it.
Okay, my last questions, because you mentioned governance, and I think that's crucial. Do you feel like there are enough laws protecting people when it comes to AI, or protecting actually the developers, the software developers actually creating these AI solutions as well? So both sides, yeah.
For sure. The appropriate regulations are actually an unlock for innovation. It may seem like an oxymoron statement, but it isn't. An appropriate regulation unlocks the diffusion of innovation because it allows both protection, as you pointed out, but also speed and scale of innovation. So we at Philips welcome appropriate level of regulations. And I'm not being squirmy about that. Appropriate because the protections, first, certainly patient privacy and data privacy protections have been in place a long time, and these are everywhere, and we certainly comply as we go. So when I think of the regulations, I'm not necessarily thinking of privacy because that's already there by and large. It's around intended use of AI. And so when you look at different across the world, as you know, the pace of regulatory statements and adoption and exploration are widely different across the world right now, which means that some regions of the world may actually move faster than others, maybe slower. And I don't need to name regions, but I can say in this region, in the Middle East region, I find the GCC is really leaning into how do you take advantage at the highest speed possible. I mentioned the Saudi Data and AI Authority we work with. I'll give you an example in Abu Dhabi, Malafi, which is an image sharing network. And we're working with them on applying AI algorithms onto the large image network to see if there are missed lesions, for example, in chest x-ray. So first, it is an interesting time because the pace of regulatory implementation is widely different. And yet the desire for adoption, because of that imbalance I started by talking about, is high. When you talk to health systems, like over 90% say they see hope in AI bringing some relief. Okay. So I think we're at a time where we're going to see disparate speed of diffusion. I think we're going to have some regions like the Middle East that likely actually may leapfrog because of the way in which top-down thinking is for the diffusion is done. In some areas like the United States, there's interesting times happening in terms of how the investments are going forward. Europe with the Europe EU AI Act has sort of started looking at how do you look at it risk-based. China's got its own thing. So globally, I think you're going to have variabilities. We will first comply with whoever comes out with what. But I think in this region, you're going to see a pace of innovation that maybe might surprise a few folks based on the conversations about Arab health and our work in the past year and more. I think we're going to see some amazing things here.
Incredible. We'd love to have you back in the Middle East. I mean, it's not your first time, and it's definitely not going to be your last time.
What is interesting about this region, Philips, the people at Philips come to work every single day really with a single focus to deliver better care for more people. And this region, there's some interesting dynamics that aligns with that vision. So you have, for example, the Saudi Vision 2030, talking about really how do you lean into AI to advance both preventative and acute care. You have like the Abu Dhabi government that funded Jordan to put tel-ICU in. This idea of delivering better care for more people is actually quite inherent in this region. So for us, we feel like the opportunities, the vision that Philips has, the way we want to work, the way we come to work every single day is actually quite aligned with the passion and pride in the Middle East of delivering better care for more people. So actually, I think there's an interesting syzygy and alignment. And so we're delighted to be here. We've been here about over 90-something years. We'll continue to be here for another 90 or 100 years. And so it's an interesting time. We're thrilled to be here.
I love that you mentioned preventative measures because I think that's the new direction here in the UAE as a whole, is that they're really pushing for preventative rather than reactive.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm sure that AI comes in handy when it comes to that particular vision because it's going to allow people to sort of nip it in the bud, as they say, before things get, too serious or out of control health-wise.
Well, look, I got to say one more thing then. Because look, care is going to the home, without exception. And that example you gave of sort of preventative is a great example of the focus we have in our monitoring business. We have a patch that you put on the heart, the patient goes home and it monitors the heart looking for arrhythmias and detection. This is the future of care. It's going to go to the home with improved monitoring at home. So that's, for sure, it's going to happen.